All right, we're back with part 4 of Why Does the United States of America Do This to Me? Continuing on from that last video, I want to make some corrections and clarifications. One is that I don't think, or actually I'm pretty much certain, that there is no transaction that takes place that relies on the financial system in its entirety. So, the financial system of the nation, the financial system of the globe, there's no single one transaction that requires on every bit of that. The second thing is in regards to Zelle. I think it's between 4 and 7 banks that own Zelle. Wells Fargo is one of them, but I don't know if there's any shared infrastructure for the cash transactions that occur on Zelle that exist in some kind of like chain link fashion, where if you take Wells Fargo out of the picture, you break one link in this chain by taking Wells Fargo out of the picture. Somehow the payment processing is slowed down or comes to a halt, or they can handle the volume or whatever that happens to be. I don't know the specifics about Zelle, but without a doubt, there are transactions and payment systems. There are transactions that require that rely on more than one bank, including with certain payment systems, that facilitate transactions. And in those cases, when a transaction involves more than one bank, it's almost always one of the banks is going to be a very, very large bank, like Wells Fargo, or at least it's going to be one of the larger banks. So it's going to be one of these SIFIs, or it's going to be Wells Fargo or Bank of America, the GSIBs. And that's because smaller banks, a lot of times, don't have the scale of operations, are not of the size to be able to afford certain infrastructure for certain services and certain systems, and so they will use the systems of a larger bank to do whatever it is that they need to do. Now on to the topic of this video. Thus far, we've established that the economy is financed, that we have the financial system, we have the banks, and all these banks in their aggregate are providing capital for the economy. They're providing capital to individual businesses, and the capital that each bank provides to the individual businesses that it serves as an essential component of those businesses. They also play a key role in the financial lives of individuals, although the difference is, in the case of the individuals, not every individual's fate rests on the availability of bank services, bank capital, payment transactions, things along these lines. The proportion of individuals, if their individual financial services were taken away, the proportion of those individuals who could survive, it's a larger proportion than the businesses that could survive if their capital was taken away. Now, as it relates to Wells Fargo, we've talked about Wells Fargo. They provide capital to their customers, short and long term, and they got these individuals that rely on them. And so, in what we learned thus far, we've kind of established that if Wells Fargo were to just disappear or to shut down, say overnight, say tonight, and all of a sudden Wells Fargo is no longer part of the picture, it would be a really, really, really bad thing for all of Wells Fargo's customers, which Wells Fargo has millions of business customers. It has tens of millions of individual customers. Okay, so it's a bad thing for all the people, all the customers that rely on Wells Fargo. And in this video, we're going to see how this thing that's a bad thing for all the customers of Wells Fargo is also a bad thing for the whole world. We're going to extend this analysis, and I'll explain to you how it is that the failure of Wells Fargo would threaten the economy of the entire earth, would cause a financial crisis, almost certainly a global financial crisis, that would threaten catastrophic, even potentially irrecoverable damage to the economy. And that comes from this second factor. The economy is a system. Okay, to be more explicit, the economy is an interconnected system. Okay, and that's the key feature, is this interconnectedness. When you have an interconnected system, okay, that's made up of components that are connected to one another, one feature of these systems is you cannot affect one component of this system without affecting some other component. Okay, and that again results from the interconnectedness. And I'll give you a hypothetical, kind of made-up example that will be very illustrative and help you understand how this works. And for this example, I want you to picture the economy as consisting of individual nodes. So every business is an individual node, and every individual is an individual node in this system. And I'm using the term business broadly. So I'm not just including for-profits, businesses that manufacture and sell inventory and stuff like this. I'm speaking of, those are included, so for-profits are certainly included, but a non-profit organization, or maybe even some charity, I don't know. Anything out there, if you're not an individual and you have an economic reality that you face, meaning you have employees that you pay, you have a lease expense, okay? That you're of the nature of an institution that has an economic reality and that would be kind of prone to seeking out bank financing, then you're in the business category, and then the individuals, those are just individual flesh and blood human beings. Okay, and each one of those is a node. So each business is a node, each individual is a node. Now, thinking in these terms, I'll give you a made-up example here. Let's say there's a bakery, a small to mid-sized bakery out in South Carolina called Buzz Cakes Bakery. Okay? And Buzz Cakes Bakery sells baked goods, sell baked snacks. And Buzz Cakes Bakery, their main customer is Joe's Gas and Go. Okay, and then Joe's Gas and Go is a chain of gas stations. That Joe, he was a good old boy in South Carolina and started out in the gas station business, many years ago, and he made it big enough to be a legend, at least in his own mind. And he's got 60 of these things out in South Carolina. There's 60 Joe's Gas and Goes all throughout South Carolina. And because of just how many stores that Joe's Gas and Go has for Buzz Cakes Bakery, Joe's Gas and Go is their main customer. 92% of their revenues come from Joe's Gas and Go, and they do business elsewhere in much smaller amounts. But their bread and butter, who pays the bills, is Joe's Gas and Go. They no way could they survive without Joe's Gas and Go. And as a matter of fact, they started out with Joe's Gas and Go when he only had 12 stores. And it was a great business, and so their expansion, Buzz Cake Bakery, their expansion of adding new facilities, getting new employees, doing everything a business does when it grows, they've done that in tandem as Joe's Gas and Go has grown, and that's how they've ended up in this situation, where they got all these bills to pay, they got lease expense, or they got debt to service, they got employees that are they got to be paid, and it's all independent on Joe's Gas and Go. Now, let's say that Joe and his wife, they're the owners of Joe's Gas and Go, and they step outside of the business, and they hire somebody to run it. They hire a new CEO. Okay, so Joe used to be the CEO, but he's out of the business now, and he's going to let somebody else run this thing, pay him a good compensation, and so they get a CEO, And this turns out to be a bad idea. Because what's discovered about 6 months after they hire this CEO is that this CEO is unethical, and out of a small portion, maybe 5 or 6 of Joe's Gas and Go's gas stations, the CEO has arranged a coordinated, cooperative, illegal gambling operation involving a lot of the employees at these stores, the managers, and the CEO and the managers and the employees. They're all profiting from this highly illegal, coordinated gambling operation. And this gets the attention of the Attorney General. People start complaining about these people are driving awful nice cars for people that ring up a cash register for a living, and so this all gets blown open, and this results that Joe's Gas and Go, the charter for Joe's Gas and Go to do business is revoked. Okay, their business license is revoked for this criminal behavior, and so Joe's Gas and Go fails. Okay, they go under. Now, what's going to happen? The first thing, as you've guessed, there goes the neighborhood for Buzzcakes Bakery. Okay, there goes the 92% of their revenue that they cannot live without. They are going to be insolvent and shut down in a very, very, very short time. Okay, and that means that both the employees of Joe's Gas and Go, okay, and a gas station like that, with 60 stores, they might have 300, 400, 500 employees, depending. You do the math that they've got. These places never close; they don't ever close, and so they'll have 3 shifts to fill, 7 days a week. That's 21 shifts a week to fill. And so they'll have between per unit per store, they'll have anywhere from 3 to 6 regular employees, frontline employees, and then they'll have a manager, an assistant manager, and then they'll have a district manager, and then a lot of them will have regional managers. So I'd say a company that size, they would have a regional manager. And so you might have that there's a district manager assigned, that each there's 60 stores and there's 12 district managers, each assigned 5 stores, and then there might be 3 regional managers that are each assigned 4 district managers. And then you'll have the corporate segments where you've got accounting staff, auditors, people that come and count the inventory, make sure that the inventory isn't being stolen. You'll have a marketing department, all of this type of stuff. That you do the math, we'll just wing it and say that Joe's Gas and Go has 400 employees. And we'll say that Buzzcakes Bakery we'll say that they have 150 employees or 175. I don't know. We'll wing it and say 200. We'll say 200 employees. Why not? And so all those employees, they're going to be out of a job. Okay, they're going to be out of a job when this business closes. And so they're going to be strained for income, and so some portion of these people, it's for certain, they're going to be having mortgage foreclosures. They're going to be having auto repossessions. When you have people in that number, 3, 4, 5, 600 people, inevitably there's going to be some in the pack they're just barely hanging on. Of course, in America, it's like damn near everybody is barely hanging on. When you disrupt their income for a period of a month, 2 months, whatever it takes for them, that there's going to be some financial devastation. And with these Buzzcakes Bakery employees, with the Joe's Gas and Go's employees, it's even possible if some of these people, if these people are concentrated, these employees are concentrated in a small enough geographical area, and they start to experience house foreclosures. these houses go on the market. Typically, a house in foreclosure it might sell for 50 cents per dollar of what it's worth. Okay, so there could be an effect in certain neighborhoods where house prices are depressed, for these people's neighbors. Okay, it could happen on both ends of this. Then you have the owners of Joe's Gas and Go. If they financed the operations of Joe's Gas and Go in any way, if they got any kind of bank financing, it's quite possible that their personal assets are at stake. When you incorporate, which any business of that size, just about any business, is going to be incorporated, but you form a liability shield between the business's assets and your personal assets. But what banks will do to manage their risk very often is they'll have you put up your personal assets as an additional collateral to secure the loan. And in that case, the owners of Joe's Gas and Go, it potentially that they might be wiped out completely, depending on what their situation is. Okay, and it's the same thing with the owners of Buzzcakes Bakery. If they've got bank financing and they provide a personal guarantee, they're going to be out something. And depending on the circumstances, possible they could get wiped out completely. They lose everything that they own. Then you have the people that lease land to Joe's Gas and Go, and also to the Buzzcakes Bakery. They're leasing land if that exists. And so I knew a girl one time that her grandfather owned some land that he leased out to an individual unit of a gas station. It was a gas station chain they leased out land for one individual gas station, and they were making $6,000 a month. So they're making $72,000 a year lease income from this gas station. And these people that are leasing land to these gas stations, it could be anybody. So it could be an investment fund. It might be an individual, like an older couple that they rely on this. This is how they fund their retirements and keep their lifestyle going. It could be anyone, and they're going to have a disruption in their income. They're going to be without their lease income, whoever that is. And then on the side of Joe's Gas and Go, they've got people like Hershey's, Mars Candy, big name vendors like that. Big name brands they sell, and those companies, Hershey's, Mars, their fate doesn't hinge on any one gas station or any 60 gas stations. They're not going to notice anything, but you have people like beer distributors who are selling beer for Coors or Anheuser-Busch or whoever it happens to be, and these people that provide the beer to these stores, they're just like salespeople. They very much materially rely on the income that comes from individual gas stations, and so there might be a lot of beer distributors out there, beer salespeople, beer sales reps that that when Joe's Gas and Go goes down, they might be losing 10% or 20% or 30% of their income. Okay, and so there's an impact to them. Now, of course, what's going to happen is whoever owns Joe's Gas and Go, by the time it's over, if the state seizes it as part of an asset forfeiture, they got some kind of law that you're doing crime with your business, so we're going to take it. The state's going to sell it to some other gas station chain, or if the bank takes it over, they're going to sell it. So a lot of these people. We'll get back on track, and of course, these people that work there, we've got a social welfare state, so they'll get unemployment, so that'll subsidize them a little bit, and eventually, they'll get new jobs. But the point here is that you see how we started this individual node of Joe's Gas and Go. Joe's Gas and Go fails, it just cascades outward. Okay, so it leads to a failure of Buzzcakes Bakery. Okay, it leads to the possibility of the owners of Buzzcakes Bakery being liquidated down to nothing potentially, and then all these employees, hundreds of people are without a job. Okay, and so it's got this cascading effect, and then it sends shock waves even to third parties, outside of Joe's Gas and Go, and outside of Buzzcakes Bakery, and outside of their employees. There are these shock waves that affect third parties in a way that is not that is above zero. There's an above zero impact on other people. Okay, and this includes, like I say, the people that they got to put their house up for sale, and they're not going to fetch near the price they need to, because these Buzzcake Bakery people, they defaulted on their loan and their house got sold for 40 or 50 cents per dollar. Okay, and so that is what I mean when I say that's an example. One example of how in this interconnected system you affect one node, and there is a cascading effect and a ripple effect that nodes all over the place are affected, and you see there just the failure of one. Joe's Gas and Go would be considered no more than a mid-sized business in the banking world. It might not even rise to the level, probably would rise to the level of a mid-sized business. But Joe's Gas and Go is by far not representative of the biggest customers that banks have. Okay, but banks they lend out to everyone, and there are a lot of companies that are obviously, if you live in America, we've got monstrous monster-sized companies. So you can already imagine what's going to happen with the ripple effects when we have this kind of ripple effect from a failure of one small gas station chain. You can imagine what's going to happen if there is a failure of a lot of these larger businesses. Now in the next video, we're going to extend this analysis of the systemic risk and this phenomena where the economy is an interconnected system, and we're going to see how a failure of Wells Fargo will impact this broader system, and how it will start to have kind of like a domino effect on the individual nodes of this interconnected system that will lead to a catastrophe.